Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in to a special edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative editor-in-chief. To my left, you're right at home. It's in his contract. He has to do his own intro.
Coming at you live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name's off the cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur, Michael, Ken, me. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And we are so excited to have a very special guest on the show, because if you are a comic fan, chances are you have heard about one of the biggest indie sensations of all of 2024, and hopefully you have multiple copies of it. And you want to make sure you pick up a very special edition, which we have a very special QR code in the top left of the screen as you're watching at home, because if Armored is not on your favorite comics of the year list, and is not in your collection, we definitely want to fix that by the end of the show. And we are very, very fortunate to have the writer of this amazing series on the line. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Michael Schwartz. Michael, what is going on?
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I'm really excited to be on and talking Armored.
Oh, yes. Like, this has been a book that I am not lying. I'm not overselling. This is honest to God truth. I have been hearing about this book since issue 1 dropped, and it went around the podcast comics community so fast that everybody's screaming, like, do you have this? You have this. And after picking up issue 1, like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is a fantastic series.
And then I heard it from him, because trust me, this is like wildfire.
Yeah, it went around that basically, like, are you reading this? Are you reading this? And then obviously there is a big issue that's coming to the stores tomorrow, and that is issue number 5. So if you are not familiar with this is going to be one of the biggest books to pick up this week.
Yes.
And we have to get into the entire story behind this fantastic series. So, Michael, how did this all come about?
Well, oh my goodness, you're making me go back like many years. How far back do you want to go? Do you
2018.
Want, like, 2018? Okay. So
you put it out there in book 1, so it's 2018.
Yeah, it's true. So 2018 was when the idea kind of came into my head. Again, no clue where it came from. I'm sure I was influenced by certain things I was watching, or thinking about things I used to do as a kid. I used to go to Germany a lot as a kid. But around 2018, another thing happened. I had all of my comic books stolen. I had 20 plus short boxes of comics, all stolen from my garage. And I said to my wife, I'm never collecting another comic book again. Like, I'm devastated. This is it. These were books I had collected and my dad had bought for me since I was about 3. I think he says I was about 3 when he first gave me a comic, because my dad's a huge comic collector. And when everything was stolen from me, I was like, I can't even look at comic books anymore. It's too much. Like, we're talking Silver Age books. My dad would always, upgrade books, and he would give me the low grade or mid grade copy, and he would keep the high grade one for himself. And so it was just like, I can't do this.
Oh man, that's and like, I lost my collection in a flood we had here back like in the 2010. So I can empathize with the loss about that, because my entire collection got wiped out.
Oh, it's a really hard thing to deal with. And we didn't just have comics, like my comics stolen. I have a huge poster collection, because I'm a big movie fan as well. I had probably 100 movie posters stolen. Most of the ones I really love were in the house, but I had them in storage for a bit, and everything that was in storage was stolen. From my property, I should say. So I also had like winter gear stolen. My wife's entire American Girl dog collection stolen. Like, it was devastating. The whole family, we had like family heirlooms stolen. It was weird. I had my boots stolen, guys.
Jesus.
Who steals boots?
Yeah, that's I'm so sorry.
It was weird. But a few months later, after that happened, you know, I went into my local comic shop, and they were still pulling books for me. And I was like thinking, oh, maybe I won't get any more. And they're like, you don't have to pick them up. It's fine. If you don't want to do comics anymore, we get it. And I was like, oh, I'll just grab a few. And then I was seeing like back issues, and I was like, oh, you know, I really want my McFarlane Spideys back, because I had a huge, I collected just McFarlane books at one point where I was just getting, oh yeah, you too.
Oh yeah, we could definitely talk about that. Yeah.
I had a box I would have just boxes of just like creators as well. But then I got really fortunate, and I found a pawn shop nearby, and they just sell 50-cent comics. It's just like boxes and boxes of 50-cent comics. And then I was finding my comics again. I was finding people on Facebook Marketplace. I was rebuying everything. I hit a point where I just had so many boxes of comics. I was reading so many books again that I said to myself, you know, I was about to start developing another project. And then I was like, you know, I've had this idea for a while. Why am I writing all these movies? I write a lot of movies, right? I get paid to write movies. I'll write spec scripts. And then a lot don't get made. Even the ones I get paid for, they don't get made. It's really hard to get the financing. But I said to myself, you know what if I just jump into doing comics? Like this is, I read more comics than I watch movies. Why don't I do this? And so I grabbed like some Jeff Johns on absolute editions. I was grabbing like, you know, hardcover editions with scripts in the back and studying them and figuring out, well, you know, I know how to write a movie. Now I just need to learn like the pacing and structure of a comic. I'm sure I know it, but I want to like study my favorite writers. So I was like grabbing Tom King books. I was grabbing all my favorite Jeff Johns first issues. And I was like, I got to write a solid first issue. Did that, sent it to my friend. This would have been 2022, who had done some Marvel books. He did like, I think he did Big Thunder Mountain Railroad was one of the books he did artwork for. And he was like, this is a really good script. I want to do this. And he didn't end up doing it. So I ended up finding an editor and hiring an editor, and he helped me find Ishmael. That's kind of how it happened. I don't know if you get where the stolen comics come in, but it really did push me into going into writing comics.
Okay. I mean, wow. That's an amazing story behind it.
When you don't have your own stories, you write your own stories.
Yeah, I mean that's just something no, but I mean to take that. I mean, obviously losing your collection like that, and I mean I'm so sorry to hear. Like that's awful, to say the least. And then to bounce back, and then just really like, okay, well I don't have stories. I'm just gonna DIY it myself. Like that's I'm blown away by that.
Yeah, I mean I know I can't say towards comic books because Ken knows how much I had in comic books that my dad gave me. But I know, well, actually you do, my Marvel cards.
Yes.
You know, the story behind that. I'm still gutted from that. And we know her name, Voldemort. But no, I get it. But to take the initiative to put a story out there. And I got to say, when you said that you were reading scripts and being a writer for writer's sake and studying the craft to bring it back around, that's like I do a lot of I do TV and movie reviews on TaP here on Nerd Initiative. So to hear that, like that is the stuff I like to hear, especially when it comes to comics.
Sorry if my audio is being weird. Let me know if it's still weird.
It's getting a little better. It's crackling a little bit. So.
Okay, apologies. I don't know why. That was what was really important to me, though, was making sure that this isn't a movie. I wanted it to be written for comics. This book was meant to be written for comics.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to settle.
I'm sorry. What's that again?
Oh, and I wasn't going to settle with making it like a movie or TV show. It was like, this has to be a comic book.
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely comes across that way. Like, it's just, it has that vibe. Just, I mean, going from the first page, and honestly, how did this whole story come to be? Like, I mean, in the sense of like the characters, like, let's talk a little bit about what the series is all about.
Well, the story is about a boy named Andy who has lost his parents mysteriously. They've disappeared, and for 2 years he's just passed around from foster home to foster home. And he finally gets adopted by this couple who live out in the countryside. It was supposed to be a nondescript kind of European country, and so he gets adopted by this family, and he quickly discovers that their child died 2 years prior. And because Andy has been kind of obsessive about what happened to his parents, he becomes obsessed with what happened to their kid. How did this boy die? So he goes to this castle that's nearby where the kid died at. And in the beginning of the book, you find out how he died, but it's kind of a mystery to the townspeople. And while investigating, he ends up falling into an old tomb and discovering this like medallion thing. And he ends up pressing it, and the suit of armor basically covers him completely. And this armor has magical powers. The only catch is that it is being haunted by the knight, the ghost of the knight that used to wear the armor hundreds of years ago. So this knight has to train the boy how to use the armor because he believes there's this evil presence or force that is going to come back to destroy the world, and he needs to train Andy how to use it properly. Of course, there's also the whole mystery as to how the boy died, and it's up to Andy and the ghost to kind of figure this all out.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster of plot twists and amazing aspects to it. I know, Tom, you want to just dive into about an art question about it.
So, you said you wrote this book specifically for the comics. When you were writing this, did you have a particular art style that you were looking for when it came to how you were writing this, or did it just come out of collaboration?
Well, I think, my friend who had done a bunch of Marvel stuff, like I'm used to like pencil, ink, and then digital coloring. Like that's, I'm used to that. Obviously, I love Alex Ross's stuff. I love painted stuff. I love David Mack's work. But I have to say, like when I read comics, I'm used to traditional artwork. But my editor, he saw Ishmael Hernandez's artwork come up at some point online, and he said, this guy is going to get scooped up. Is this someone you'd be interested in? And I saw his art for another book he had done, which I don't think a lot of people have seen. And I was just like, that's really cool looking. And I was unsure, though. I was like, will other people like this? Will other people be able to move past the fact that it's not like digitally colored, that it's all watercolors, that it's painted, that it's more raw? And I also liked that it had kind of a look like, medieval like paintings, or like you see a medieval text in a movie and it has the certain style to it. I felt like Ishmael's artwork kind of looked like that. And I don't know what it was, but when I showed it to my wife, she was like, oh, that's really cool. I love that artwork too. And she is a comic reader, but she doesn't read as much as me. So when I was like, okay, she likes this style, I think I'm just going to go for it. And my editor was really pushing for him. And that's kind of it. A lot of it is Ishmael. This is his style.
Well, I will say it works in spades. Let me tell you. It's nice, and like you said, you work in, black, white inks, and then, digital color. It's always refreshing in the industry to see someone that takes that different approach. And it really is a great change of pace, especially in today's industry.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I agree with you.
Again, kudos to Ishmael.
Yeah. Like
Absolutely.
the artwork is just absolutely crazy about this. And like I say, it really tells a story as well. Like I say, this is some of the images from issue number 1 of Armored, and just seeing how this is all kind of really going about it. It just really sells us about being something different. And especially being something different about this is the story itself, because at first glance, you think it's this adventure story, but as you start diving in, it really is about a horror story. It's a good mix about it. So when you were writing this out, like I say, did you notice, like, I mean, this is a tough line to walk, but did you see this story evolving from like where you started to where it's going into issue number 5?
Not too much. I kind of had I knew exactly what the ending was. Oh my goodness, Tim Sheridan is here as well.
Hey, we know that guy. Let's just say hi, Tim. Hi,
Yes.
Tim.
Hello, Tim.
Hi, Tim. He should be here. I should get him to talk about my book. That would be great.
Tim is always welcome to come back on the show. He's an amazing writer, as well as you are too.
He can literally say, "Send me the link. We'll send it right now."
Yeah.
Love Tim.
Yes.
The ending was always the ending. Like issue 5's ending was always that. The details may not have been figured out, but that was how I had planned to end the first arc. I think early on, we love you too, Tim. The first arc I originally conceived as 6 issues, but this is a book that, like, not many people probably know this. This is a book that, like, I'm fully financing completely. Like, this is all of my money I'm putting into this thing. So a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a movie guy. He gets the reference.
Yeah, I was gonna say nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And so it, it gets expensive making comics, so that's why it ended up being a 5-issue miniseries. So, but I think in some ways that helped with the pacing. I didn't want to have issues that were unnecessary. Instead, I made longer issues. Instead of 22 pages, the first issue is 30, second issue is 26. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I think it does, right? Did it?
I would say so, because especially going off that it's DIY, and especially like you're putting all your money into it, you really want to give the fans bang for the buck, so to speak.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of really giving the full investment. So you don't have, I don't want to say a luxury, but like you say, to have like stuff you can really expand on. You really were keeping a pace very tight for it, and I really think that helps the story as well, because it really walks that fine line. Like I say, we have horror aspects along with it, but there's also the adventure camaraderie part with Sir William and Andy that you really does a nice fine balance with too, because it's not just one genre, it's multiple ones. And that's one thing that me as a reader, I notice, and stands out to me like, wow, this is not what I expected, but I'm now fully entrenched on what you're doing.
It also goes towards his artistic integrity, especially because being self-financed, you get to make the call, you get to make the shots. Instead of cutting and putting those pages on the cutting room floor, you knew that, hey, to tell my story the way I need to, and if I'm only going to do it in 5, I need to keep these panels in and these panels out.
Exactly. With this book, this is kind of the first, like with my movies, I've come in to fix scripts. I've written a lot of scripts from scratch with directors that haven't been made, but this was one I felt like you're seeing basically my idea from the beginning. Whereas in the movies I've worked on, those are far more collaborative. Either, I'm working with someone else, or we're taking a script that couldn't get made, and we've tried to fix it to get it to a place where the producers were happy. This is just all me, like everything. Obviously with some help from Ishmael, help from Chris Stevens, my editor. But yeah, I would agree. There's way more control in comics.
Now, as Ken said, you run the line between having a horror and adventure, but I still see like a little buddy cop there,
Oh yeah, I mean, it's multi-layered.
And because Sir William is such a throwback, all right, I'm just going to have fun with this, and Ken's letting me get away with this.
Yep.
Didst thee find it most difficult to divine how much of the King's English thou shalt cometh off as not sounding like a ponce?
Honestly, I was just winging it most of the time. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I can't even go near that.
Former theater kid.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I probably should have, like looking back, I was like, oh, I probably, so many people are reading this. I never expected so many people to read this book that I would like look back and I was like, I really should have spent more time figuring out how Sir William will speak throughout the series.
Nope.
But a
you
lot of
got it.
people have grown to really like how ludicrous his speech is.
Exactly. Now, on top of it, who is your favorite character to write?
I think I've lost your sound. I could not hear that question. Okay, so it sounds like you guys have lost your sound. According to Tim, this is great. Tim is our our tech guy tonight. Thank you, Tim. Tech difficulties, stand by. Oh my goodness, this is my time to shine, eh? What? Tim asked me a question. I'll answer your questions. Interview me, Tim. Come on. It's up to Tim now to run the show, guys.
Are we back now?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. All right. I think
we still need a Tim Sheridan question.
Yes, we still need a Tim Sheridan.
Oh, that
yes.
was great.
So what fun quotes might we find in the back of issue number 5? That is an excellent question, Tim. Thank you so much for throwing that in. Chat, super chat, definitely make your voice heard about that.
Okay, so there are two. Every issue has 2 quotes on the back that Clover has put on. I gave them just like a huge list of blurbs. I had so many creators provide me great feedback. I had podcasts, you name it. People were just giving me stuff, and I gave it all to Clover, and then they just randomly chose which ones to use. So here's one. Stranger Things meets Sword in the Stone. Schwartz strikes the perfect balance between fun and thrills, delivering a fantastic debut. And that was Bada Boom podcast.
Oh, shout out to
We
Chris.
like them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They, that's a great, I think what they say that Stranger Things and Sword in the Stone, it's kind of like a perfect pairing in a way to describe Armored, except obviously it's modern day. It's not like Sword in the Stone set back then. But there is another quote back here, and it says, Armored is a smart, fun read that will absolutely haunt me for not having written it. And that was Tim Sheridan that wrote that.
Who? Oh, that guy. Yeah.
But it definitely deserves the praise for it. I mean, that's one thing that you see with this book. And it's one that, like I said earlier in the show, it's really gone around the community in the sense of like the podcasts, the Talk Comics have all been speaking highly of this. I know our Nerd Initiative Bullpen, like this is a staple amongst ours for reading, and we're getting more people into it. And especially just of how it wins everybody over, and especially the characters, I think, are what really drives home this book.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Who has been your favorite character to write in the series thus far?
I think it is Sir William. Just the banter between him and Andy, I just have the most fun with, especially when Sir William is finding something out about modern times, like where he's totally out of time, and he's like,
"'Tis a worm, I tell you that."
Yes.
Exactly.
He's great. I mean, I think there's so many different characters you can go around, especially the brooding Miles character, which I mean is going to have a little more depth and as the series progresses onward.
Yeah, depth is putting it mildly.
Yes. but that's just one thing that wins over the characters too, especially where you start focusing in on about where Andy's journey has led him to. I mean, from being the orphan that is now joining the family to now kind of fighting for his place amongst being in the family. Like how would you describe his growth as a character?
Yeah, this whole first arc is about him overcoming and getting over that loss of his parents. You know, finally like moving on. There were 2 years of him being passed around from family to family for a reason. He was not accepting anyone family. He didn't want to be adopted. He wants his parents back, but he's finally hit a point where he needs to move on. And that's like everything being thrown at him in this series is him being challenged to accept this new family that has adopted him. These people, they are a bit weird. They also need to get over the loss of their son, so they're going through the same thing as him. And I always saw kind of the armor as a metaphor for that. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but like, you know, Andy has to basically get rid of that wall he's had up and accept these people, but also he has to, in a way, fight this evil presence that has arrived without his armor. He can't always have that armor on. He can't always have this protective wall up.
Yeah, that's something that you see that he does form his own walls. It's kind of ironic with the armor being built that's shielding him from what he's truly feeling. And especially like as his journey goes into issue number 5, which like we can't stress enough is coming out tomorrow at the comic shops.
Go get it.
There's going to be a lot of answers and a lot more questions coming forth too.
So, you know, what's interesting, as you said, you're a scriptwriter and screenwriter. There's one thing that really stuck out to me, and I try to find as much joy and fun little Easter eggs in comics. So at the school, you have a quote from the Bible on there. I like the old King James version. So why did we go with the lazy new international version?
This is where Ishmael puts in some of his things. So that was an Ishmael edition.
Okay.
And I'm guessing it's drawn from what, his experiences. So Ishmael lives in Spain.
Okay.
And so he's far more knowledgeable about what's happening in Europe than me. I live in Canada. We have one castle. It's called Castle Loma, and it's in Toronto, and it was built by a rich guy in the 20s or 30s. So we're not, I've been to many castles, but I don't live amongst them like he does. When it came to like that school, I went to a school that was built in the 1800s here. So it looks really old. And I just sent them pictures and said, hey, I want the school to look something like this. It kind of looks like Hogwarts or whatever. And then he just adds some details. But you'll see little things throughout where he'll add things. I think it's in issue 4. There's like graffiti on the wall, and there was a lot of back and forth between me, my editor, and Ishmael, where it was like Ishmael wanted to put like some sort of political message on the wall as graffiti. And I was like, we need like a funny graffiti thing. And it just kept evolving. You'll see it at some point. Sir William looks at it like, what is that?
It is the King Richard, as it was.
Yes.
Is that what you were talking about specifically?
Well, no, specifically I was talking about how Proverbs 12:24.
Yes, yeah. Again, I have no idea. I just accepted it.
Okay, so let me enlighten just for half a second, okay?
Yeah.
So the original way was in the King James version is the hand of the diligent shall bear rule, but slothful shall be under tribute. The version that Ishmael put in, because we're going to throw him on the bus on this, we still love his art, okay, is diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in manual labor or enforced labor. That is the modern interpretation of the same exact quote.
Interesting.
Yep. I did Catholic school, so like when my altar boy was going off reading that.
I did not go to Catholic school, so I'm gonna have to research that more. I was just like, oh, it looks neat. I was far more concerned with the panels, to be completely honest.
Perfect transition, because that's my next question.
Yes.
So is there a reason that on some of the pages you've had the uneven panel size? Some of them overflow, some of them take up the whole width. Like, was that an artistic version or artistic interpretation from Ishmael? Is that something you wanted to do to separate the flow, to really, keep everybody off kilter?
I tell him how many panels and which ones, should be big, small, what the angles are, who's in frame. But he really does come up with the stylized look overall. And you can see when Andy's world starts to kind of fall apart, it gets more crooked, it gets more angular.
Yeah, we notice these things because that's our job.
You guys read a lot of comics.
We turn a lot of pages.
Yes, we do every Tuesday night.
But now we know that by the end of 4, things are definitely, spoilers, folks, have gone a turn for the worse. Things have gotten really heavy, and there's a lot of red tones that add to this oh snap kind of moment. Whose idea, because I absolutely love it, to have the blacked out eyes both for spoiler Miles and his parents, as you can see right there on screen. Whose idea was this? Because, we see a lot of times when there's like zombified or some sort of, mentally controlled character, you get a glazed look, but to have this depth of nothingness, like whose idea was that?
That was just me putting that in the script. Make them have black eyes. Yeah. And
I'll tell you, it works.
Yeah, especially with his artwork. I find that it's far more sinister. The pure black eyes on every character. Yeah.
Now, at the end of 4, we find out that, one of the key elements in the story is, this Bible, as it were, was your writing is so darn good that it really was almost for 3 issues a red herring to in lack of better words. Like, was that the intention of who has the book just completely out of left field? Because I was like, what? But you were leaving here, and I went.
The messages I got after he read this, it will blow your mind.
Seriously, we have our own chat. It's like, did you believe they did that?
Well, I think these are people that have dealt with such immeasurable loss. Like, I can't even imagine. I have 2 kids, and I was thinking, like, what would I go to? This is a book. In the comic, it's called The Bible of Death, and this is a book that was, they don't know for sure if it's real or not. They've clearly read from it or been studying it. They don't. I'm guessing, like many things, think it's like fake or whatever. The people studying it, but. Wouldn't you trying to bring your child back if there was like an incantation or something? And that's where that came from. I was like, this is, it just seemed like the natural. I like a bit of mystery, and I like a bit of like, to me, I love comics that have mystery in it, and you're like guessing, what is it? Where are we going? What's this character doing? And I really wanted that mystery to be resolved in these 5 issues. But in issue 5, there's also another twist, because it isn't just one person who has used this book. Like, there's 2 people guilty of using it.
So here's another thing, since you're talking about, all the emotional heft that you've had with all your characters that you're adding to them. Are you okay?
I'm fine. But, I talked a lot to my editor, I think it was issue 3. I was like, this book is like all about loss, and it's like so sad and depressing. If you really like, it's a lot of fun, but when you get down to it, it's constantly like people who have lost like family members, and it's really depressing. But then
it's depressing, but it's relatable at the same time.
And there were 2 common, thinking back, I started thinking about 2 things. I wrote this as we were coming out of the pandemic, and obviously a lot of people lost loved ones during the pandemic. And then the other thing was that in a weird way, I don't want to compare it to the loss of a life, obviously, but I had lost all my comics, and I was like, is this me kind of working through that loss in a weird way and putting it on these characters and being like, you have to deal with my issue, you know? And again, it's just things. I lost things. It's things that can be replaced. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe that's what I was working through while writing this.
I mean, it does make sense too, but also like a lot of the great heroes, they have to go through loss to come back stronger in the end. I mean, you see about Spider-Man losing Uncle Ben, Batman losing his parents, Superman losing his entire planet. You know, it's that kind of challenge that really forges them into the heroes that they are, in like a weird irony twist. But that's where you see with Andy here too, that, you know, he's working through his own stuff along with the world around him is very dead, and he's finding life in it, ironically, through the voice of a ghost. I mean, but that's just one of the twists to the story that I think it makes it stand out from everything else on the shelf. Like, there is just so many elements going on. I mean, it feels very modern, but there's some very cool throwbacks involved with it. And that kind of leads into what is going on right now as well, because not only do you have issue number 5 hitting stores tomorrow, and we definitely have to plug that one more time, but there is a very special Kickstarter campaign that is live right now. And this is one that the minute I saw the half number, as an old school Wizard magazine reader, I marked out and went, oh, don't even tell me they're going here. And sure enough, we have Armored Half, which is live now on Kickstarter for a couple more days. Let's talk about the campaign and honestly, the pros and cons of going through Kickstarter as a creator.
Oh man. Okay, yeah. So first, Armored Half. I'm like you, Ken, and Tom. Were you a collector of Wizard?
I am not. I looked at them as I glanced. So my comic book history, I've always been a mythology guy. I know the characters. I know their power sets. I know all that because I had the Marvel cards as a kid, DC, and so on and so forth. I didn't really start reading comic books up until just a few years ago. So that's what makes our our flip side dynamic the way it is. He's the knowledge. I'm just the face.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool to be like so new to it. I feel like, because I feel like I've grown up with the comics.
Same,
But
yeah.
Wizard magazine was like, you know, the Time magazine of my household. Like it was always there, or it'd be in the bathroom. It would be wherever. My dad
For me,
read
it was Nintendo Powers and Game Pro. Like I was a video game.
No, in the 90s, it was a staple if you were a comic fan.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you had to have Wizard. You had to see who was on the cover with the Wizard hat drawn in, who was the top 10 artists, who was the top 10 writers, and the book. Like I say, it was like, I know we're dating it before the internet really took over, but this is like how everybody knew about books coming out and really had that connection at the comic shops, because everybody's reading it and everybody's talking like, yo, did you see this in Wizard? And like it would just spiral from there.
Yeah, and so I grew up reading it, and I discovered this podcast called Wizards, the Podcast Guide to Comics, and I quickly became obsessed with it. This is going back like 5 years ago when the podcast started, and I jumped on, and I loved it because they were just going through issue by issue on their podcast, re-examining what was happening in comics at that time. And I would reach out to the co-hosts and just be like, hey guys, love the podcast. That was great. They eventually invited me on for a few episodes here and there. And last year, their one co-host, Michael Canetti. So the podcast was created by Adam Pope and Michael Canetti. And Michael had to leave the podcast, and Adam came to me and said, you've been a co-host before. Do you want to join permanently now? And so I jumped at it. I was like, I want an excuse to go back and read Wizard magazine. And this was my excuse. I have all my old Wizards still. Like my dad basically gave them all to me, so I have them. And
wait a minute, Wizard didn't they track for a while? And I could be completely wrong. Magic the Gathering values for the cards in the back.
Maybe near the end.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure on.
because that would have been like 2000, back when my dad passed, when I started getting into Magic. I think I was picking up a few issues just to track values of cards. And I don't know if it was Wizard, but I can't remember. If anybody else in the chat was a Magic the Gathering nerd, let me know.
They had
The
spin-off.
spin-off, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Inquest?
this is
Was it
spin-off.
Inquest? Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Adam would know. It's too bad he's not here. Adam is like the expert when it comes to Wizard. Like he has like a whole archive of every book they released, every spin-off. He has foreign editions. He has everything.
Oh my God.
That's
The-
awesome.
The old Wizard staffers donate stuff to him all the time from their personal collection that they had from Wizard. So he has everything.
Someone call us Smithsonian.
Yeah, seriously, he could do a little like museum of Wizard. But when he asked me to join, I was like totally in. And then within a few episodes, Michael and Adam came to me and said, "Hey, we want to bring back the half issue, and now we know a comic book creator. Would you be willing to do this?" And I'm like, guys, like, my book isn't even out yet. But they just really wanted to bring it back, right? The last half issue was in 2008.
Wow.
That's about
So,
time.
yeah. And we didn't really know what we were doing, truth be told. Like, it was a year ago, probably a year ago, November, that I joined the podcast, and it would have been around January that they asked if I wanted to do this. And so we kind of just ran with it, and we've just been building, like, what should be in it? Who should we ask to help contribute? And so this book, do you want me to talk about what's in the half issue of Armored?
Absolutely.
It's your book, man. You go.
So, like, it's actually a flipper book. So the one side of the book is a brand new Armored story. So this story it catches people up who haven't read any issue of Armored at all, but it also recaps for anyone that has been reading Armored. And then it gives you a little fun story with Sir William and Andy, and they discover a new part of the castle, and there's this new villain. So it's a fun little story. In addition to the story, there's a bunch of behind-the-scenes artwork from Ishmael Hernandez. There's fan art for Armored, and we're looking for more fan art. So if anyone's listening, or if you guys know anyone, we're looking for more Armored fan art to include in this book, and
Can I just take a picture of him because he's a fan?
He's holding up the book.
He's the work of art. So
He's the work of art. I'll put him right in.
Yeah.
there you go.
So then when you flip the book over the other side, it's more the Wizard content, we would call it. So the cover is like an homage to Wizard magazine. We use artwork from Ishmael on that side. We're going to do fun things like do a fake contest. Wizard always had these crazy contests, and in the fine print they always had jokes. We're going to just make the whole thing a joke.
Nice.
Most of Wizard was jokes, so like there's going to be jokes throughout this thing. But one of the cool things about this book is it's also a history into half issues that Wizard made. So it's like a complete article. Adam has gone and interviewed old Wizard staffers. He interviewed the previous owner of Wizard magazine, Gareb Shamus.
Gareb? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is like a comprehensive article about how half issues came about at Wizard magazine. And then in addition to that, we're including a whole visual guide to every half issue. So you'll be able to like go, you got your Armored half. Now you got to go and collect all the other half issues from the back issue bins.
That's amazing.
We also have some other cool things. They used to do Last Man Standing, which was like pitting two characters against each other, like in a battle, and they'd write up like a little battle. So we have Phillips CV from Marvel. He's a Marvel artist. He's doing Last Ghost Standing for us. And it's Sir William versus some ghost characters. And I won't spoil who they are, but there are three ghost characters.
How'd you get the rights to those guys?
We may not. We're homaging. We're paying homage to them.
Perfectly all right. Perfectly all right.
So they're not ghosts. They're poltergeist adjacent.
Yes.
And
That's a technical term.
I would, the goal of this book isn't to make any money. We will not see a cent of this money. It was literally just to pay the artists, Ishmael, Phil, our cover artist Adam Riches, who does an homage cover to Spider-Man Unlimited.
Spider-Man Unlimited, Ron Lim.
Yep, exactly. And that's our goal, and to get it printed. Those were our two goals: pay everyone and get it printed. And that's what we've done. Like, we've hit the point where we're knocking those two things off, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I say, to grow up in that time period, I can't stress enough. Like, Wizard was a staple amongst comic fans. Like, it was one, and when it came out at the LCS, you grabbed that too. You got up to bit, and then, like, say, the articles. I always remember Last Man Standing too, because they go really in depth about that too. Like, because it would be the crossovers before they even got into like the Marvel versus DC, which even they broke down, and I still stand by it. They were right about Lobo should have beat Wolverine, and Captain America should be Batman, hands down. Like, it should have happened, did not happen. That'll be for another podcast, because I will just go on a tangent.
Batman beat Cap.
Okay, this is a whole different ball of wax. There's a Marvel versus DC series that you can go read. I'm sure it's on one of the.
I think we need a variant edition.
We can talk about that at another time. Like, that will go. Like, listen, as a rabbit hole, like, you don't want me to go down. All right. That's I mean, the Amalgam universe is good. What happened? Okay. But even like with Kickstarter now, I mean, how impactful is that for you as a creator coming out?
I find Kickstarter, I love it and I hate it at the same time, because you really have to continuously be pushing it.
Yeah.
Like, and to me, I find it really hard because I also have a day job too. I'm writing scripts. I'm working in visual effects, and then I also have these Kickstarters always happening. And so I find it challenging. What I love is it's like direct. You're getting direct to the buyers or the comic fans. And to me, that is like super valuable. People that had backed the first Kickstarter, it was interesting. They may not talk about the book on like social media, but they'll contact me directly to tell me how much they love it. Or they'll contact Clover directly and be like, I love this book. I can't wait for more issues. And also the other thing that it's like, you also get an opportunity to do more exclusives. Like, there's actually a bunch of armored covers that you can only get at signings from me now. Or at during the Kickstarter. They're not available anywhere else. Like, I have a Scott Collins cover that has turned out to be quite a popular cover. Yeah. Whenever I do signings, people are always picking up that book. Like, I think I'm down to like 20 copies now. So it's really cool in that sense that you get to try out things, but it can be expensive as well, right? Like, when you're printing more covers, there's more costs you're incurring. So it's a balance. You have to balance, like, how much stuff are you going to print? What are you going to do? To me, it's hard. I really do find it challenging while also balancing everything else. There are some people that are just such Kickstarter pros, though. Like, I clearly do not have the following that some people have. Like, I just didn't create like a big social media presence before getting into it, and I was like, oh damn, I should have been doing this beforehand. It would have been good.
But it's the one thing about doing a DIY style. I mean, you learn as you grow, and the one thing that, I mean, I just know from every issue that comes out, like, there's more of a buzz around it than the last one, and that's what you want. You want the fans to be invested in what you're making, and Armored is a true testament of that. Like, it's one that when you have any reader pick it up, they're always commenting positively online about it, and they're really spreading the word about it, that you hear about it so much. That's what makes people go pick up the book, and then when they pick it up, they're like, okay, now I get it, and now I understand.
I heard someone tell me last week, I think it was, that they said it's a bit of a sleeper hit because it slowly just keeps on picking up. Like, right when it came out, it did well, but the Kickstarter wasn't this big explosive thing, but it's been slowly picking up. Like, issue 4, last I checked, last Clover told me at Diamond and Lunar, there's like 4 copies left at Diamond or something. Like,
wow.
We're like, just a few books away from selling out of issue 4. And then issue 5, last I heard, we're in the teens at this point of copies left. So, you know, we didn't sell out on issue 2. We didn't sell out on issue 3, but all of a sudden now we're seeing sellouts on these later issues. And it's kind of surreal to all of a sudden see people like picking it up more and more.
Well, the quality of work speaks for itself.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's word of mouth. And that's one thing that I picked up on with a lot of Kickstarter books that start out is just when you get it in people's hands, that's when they start talking about it. And that's how it really spreads like wildfire. And then you have to really kind of put in perspective like that, yeah, the first couple issues are, going to have a bit of a struggle just because it's brand new and people don't know.
Yeah.
But once people find out about it, that's when the floodgates open. And that's really, I think, the greatest story of Armored itself is just people finding the book, people falling in love with the book, because there's a lot to really get lost in all the right reasons. And then now you're hooked on it. And now you're like, okay, when's the next issue coming? When's the next? And, then that's got to be the best feeling as a creator.
Oh, it's so amazing. Honestly, after issue 1 came out, we sold out at Diamond within a week, which was shocking. And Clover ended up having to transfer more stock from the other distributor over to cover all the orders.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
But we've since sold out of issue 1 again on Diamond, and they've completely removed issue 1 from their site. So it's like had 2 successes.
Yeah, but still, hey, the win's the win, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love hearing the feedback. People have been so positive about it. I think that's what's really, really cool. It's like just this small idea I had, found an editor on Facebook, and all of a sudden I'm here. I'm talking to you guys. It's weird how 2 years ago I never would have imagined this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a testament to you and the team's work.
And it's a testament to your story, that you've made a story that really does cross over the genres, and it's relatable, and it is an easy read. And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
No.
It's comprehensible more than anything. You're not going to such foreign concepts that the casual reader picking up their first book ever at the shop, they'll get it. And also being a new book, they don't need to have 40, 50, 60 years of mythology behind it. I mean, obviously Sir William's a little older than that, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wanted that like what you just described is what I wanted. I wanted it to be a very easy read. I didn't want anyone to be like, what was that? Like, sometimes I can read a comic and be like, okay, I have to go back. What is happening here? I wanted people to pick up and get it. And I've tried to do that with each issue too, where there's some sort of way we've re-summarized where we're at too. Like, I hate picking up a comic and being like, oh man, it's been a month. What happened again?
Yeah.
And so I've tried to do that with each issue.
I told Greta, that my wife, that babe, you can pick this up and have it done in a night. Just read all of them. You got this. And she's like, really? Yep. If we're hyping this up, yeah, you want to. Now, because of the story, knowing that the first arc is the five stories, okay, five issues. How many have you already scripted out for? That's the best way I can ask without going into spoiler territory. Like, how many arcs do we have?
I would love if I could do like 10 arcs would be amazing, but the truth is that there are 4 arcs for the whole series. That, like, if this doesn't take off, if it doesn't become, say, graphic novel sales suck or something, who knows what happens? People just decide, we don't want to read this book anymore. Regardless, there are going to be 4 arcs. I refuse to not tell this whole story. But if it is a success, I would love to. I have so many more stories I want to add. Like, I have all these great ideas for Andy. But this was always intended as like a semi-ongoing series in a way. Like, I'm not saying forever. Like, I don't ever foresee it being like 100 to 200 issues, but I definitely want to tell some sort of long form story here. And as you can tell with that issue 5, that final page, which was planned from issue 1, that final page in issue 5 was planned in issue 1. And that character is actually, there's actually a cameo of that character in issue 1.
Excuse me, I'm going to pull up issue 1 right
Yeah,
now.
he's gonna go look for that.
I tell everyone, I told, my daughter read it all and she was like, who is that? And I was like, well, they're actually in issue 1. And it's, when you go back, let's see if you can figure it out.
So while he's checking that out,
I really am.
yeah, we're gonna have a little fun question for you. If you, because we're talking throwbacks and we're talking, the 90s era and we're talking Silver Age. If you could cross over Andy with one other group from either the 90s or the Silver Age, who would it be and why? Like to do like a one-shot special.
Oh my goodness. Well, and it can be any publisher.
Genre, like any time frame, I should say, because we were mentioning, because I was going to go the 90s talking Wizard, and then when you mentioned about the Silver Age, Tom was like, yeah, we got to talk Silver Age. So I'll just say, if you could do any time era, any group, any hero, who and why?
It would be Spawn, probably.
Ooh.
Spawn was a huge influence on me, like in the 90s, by the mid 90s. I'm sure my dad still had other books that he was pulling for me. Like I was getting like The Darkness and stuff, and then I was getting into Hellboy, but like Spawn was something I collected consistently. And I was reading all the time. I would read it month to month, and then we'd go away to a cottage or we'd go to Florida for a vacation, and I would bring every issue that came out that year and reread it as like one sitting. So Spawn would definitely be it. And I'm sure there's like like I remember when Ishmael was designing the armor. I think there was things like it just wasn't what I had pictured, and I kept sending him pictures of medieval Spawn. I was like, let's go closer to this.
Oh, that'd be dope.
So like I do think Spawn would have to be the character.
No, I could definitely see that, especially medieval Spawn. Like you could even do like past and present.
Yeah.
Like I could say that.
Yeah.
So we're putting this karma out into the world that we need this one shot off.
Guys, let me tell you this. At New York Comic Con, I met you at New York Comic Con, Ken.
Right.
But I also met. I met and got to speak with Todd McFarlane, and so he gave me his assistant's email, and he told me to send Armored to his assistant. So I have done that, but I've not followed up. So I got to follow up. You've just basically have put the. That'll be first thing on my list tomorrow. Emailing Todd McFarlane's assistant and seeing if he had a chance to read it.
Okay, we're putting the karma out there. Hashtag armored Spawn. That'll be the hashtag. We'll still drop that because we need to have this book made. This is along with many, many more issues going on. So other than Armored, is there anything else on 2025 that we should have on the horizon for you coming up?
Yeah, well, I have a horror movie coming out next year, probably to film festivals, that I co-wrote with a director. He's a first-time director. This is like a very serious adult horror. Like this is nothing my kids can watch. Everything I've done has been for Armored kids can read.
Mm-hmm.
No Malone is straight up a kids movie. That's when I do signings, kids like come up to me and are super excited about the fact that I wrote No Malone. And then R.L. Stine's Zombie Town. But this is straight horror. Like it's for adults. There's that. And then I have another book that I have written with my wife actually. And we have about 90 pages completed. And
okay.
We have just started sending it to publishers. So
so when that one gets published, we are definitely going to have both of you on because this is going to be fun to watch you two bicker back and forth, or discuss the book.
Well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but you'll see how like writing it with your partner or with my partner is very valuable. The type of story we're telling is I think a lot of people will find it interesting. And again, this is not a book that is for kids. It's not a kid's book at all. Like teens could definitely read it, but It's more of an adult book, so I'm definitely venturing out of my comfort zone in 2025, I'd say.
Okay.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that because that's growth. But I mean, it all comes back to where it started, and that's Armored. And we can't stress enough, folks, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's going to be in the podcast form or on YouTube, Armored number 5 is hitting comic shops December 18th. It is one of the first 4 reviews dropping on nerdinitiative.com in the morning because that is how highly the bullpen is ranking it as one of the books to go get this week. And you cannot forget about a couple days left, Armored Half. If you are a Wizard magazine reader, you are required to go get this because this is taking me back. And this is going to be one that you want to have in your collection. And Michael, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to have you back on sooner than later to talk some Armored and talk about the other projects you have coming on.
Thank you so much, Ken and Tom. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Tim for making an appearance.
Oh, the one and only Tim Sheridan, which everybody needs to make sure you're going to get in trade paperback form. Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. Can't plug that book enough.
I couldn't get a chance to get my trade paperback.
He's mad because I bought the last one in New York Comic Con.
That's all right. I got a very special issue from Tim, so it's okay.
Good. We need a hardcover of that book. That's what I want. I want a hardcover.
Yep.
I'm right there with you.
That out there.
We're putting that karma out there as well, folks.
Yep.
So on behalf
willpower.
Yes.
Willpower.
We'll will it.
Yes, we will will it into existence. So that is it for this week's edition of Turn a Page. So on behalf of Tom, myself, and Michael, we'll just end it like we always do. When you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hands, such as issue number 5 from Armored by Clover Press and Michael Schwartz, definitely, and you see somebody struggling to find one, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page.
I'm out.